Hello there, learners, and welcome back to another lesson with Teacher Dayan. Today, we're going to delve into the world of Philippine literature. But before that, can you guess the words that these pictures represent? Alright, let's get started. This game is called Mystery Box Game. Keep the box or give the box. So here's how to play the game. You are correct. The answer is family-oriented. Are you going to keep the box or give the box? If your answer is bayanihan, then you are correct. Are you going to keep the box or give the box? The correct answer is pagmamano. Very good. Are you going to keep the box or give the box? Congratulations! The answer is hospitality. Are you going to keep the box or give the box? You are right. The answer is resilience. Are you going to keep the box or give the box? The words that you guessed earlier are examples of characteristics and traits of Filipino. But how do these characteristics contribute to our identity as Filipino? Can you identify instances in literature or media, perhaps posters, commercials, or movies that portray these characteristics of Filipino? How does literature become a tool in identifying one's trait and understanding other people? These characteristics not only define our identity as Filipinos, but also serve as our guiding principles, which influence our actions, relationships, and world views that make us proud of our cultural heritage and uniqueness. These traits are shown in various literature through different characters, stories, and cultures, helping the readers appreciate their own identity and understand the world around them. One of the examples of this literature is the story titled The Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers by Alejandro Roses. But before we read the story, let us first get to know our author. Alejandro Roses was born on July 13, 1924 and died May 23, 2011. He was awarded National Artist for Literature in 2003. He was a prominent short story writer and essayist, particularly acclaimed for his comic short stories like My Brother's Peculiar Chicken. His works have been published in various international magazines and received numerous national and international awards, including several decorations from various governments. Now that you already know our author, let us try to unlock unfamiliar word. For this task, you're going to read each sentence carefully, identify the underlined word, and use the context clues provided to determine its meaning. Can you still remember context clues in your English class when you're in grade 5? That's very good. Context clues refer to the information or hints provided within a text that help readers infer the meaning of unfamiliar words or phrases. These clues can include words, phrases, or sentences that give insight into the definition, pronunciation, or usage of the unfamiliar term. Context clues may include synonyms, Antonyms, examples, explanations, or descriptions that assist readers in comprehending the intended meaning of the word or phrase within its context. Now let's try to determine the meaning of these unfamiliar words. I unhitched Dato from the plow and led him to the mud hole, allowing him to move freely. What is the meaning of the word unhitched? Answer is detached. Number 2. After a night of heavy drinking, Jake stumbled into the house, completely soused, slurring his words and unable to walk straight. What is the meaning of the word soused? The answer is drunk. After hearing the news of his failed business venture, John ran amok, throwing papers and overturning furniture in his office in a fit of rage. What is the meaning of the word amok? The correct answer is rampage. As the sun began to set, the soldiers marched back to their barracks, eager for some rest after a long day of training exercises. What is the meaning of the word barracks? The answer is military quarters. The candle flickered gently, its wick slowly burning as it illuminated the dimly lit room with a warm, comforting glow. The answer is gleamed. Great job, grade 7 learners. Now it's time for us to watch the video of the story, We Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers. As we watch the video, please be guided with these guide questions. What cultural difference regarding alcohol consumption is highlighted between the Filipino protagonist and the American soldier? What role does the Carabao Datu play in the story, and how does it symbolize Filipino identity? How does the story demonstrate the strength of Filipino culture in overcoming the challenges posed by colonialism and the pressure to assimilate?
We Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers by Alejandro Arroses. We Filipinos are mild drinkers. We drink for only three good reasons. We drink when we are very happy, we drink when we are very sad, and we drink for any other reason. When the Americans recaptured the Philippines, they built an air base a few miles from our barrio. Yankee soldiers became a very common sight. I met a lot of GIs and made many friends. I could not pronounce their names. I could not tell them apart. All Americans looked alike to me. They all looked white. One afternoon, I was plowing a rice field with our Carabao named Datu. I was barefooted and stripped to the waist. My pants, which were made from abaca fibers and woven on homemade looms, were rolled to my knees. My bolo was at my side. An American soldier was walking on the highway. When he saw me, he headed toward me. I stopped plowing and waited for him. I noticed he was carrying a half-pint bottle of whiskey. Whiskey bottles seemed part of the American uniform. "Hello, my little brown brother," he said, patting me on the head. "Hello, Joe," I answered. All Americans are called Joe in the Philippines. "I am sorry, Joe. There are no bars in this barrio." "Oh no, you know where I could buy more whiskey?" "Here, have a swig. You have been working hard." "No thank you, Joe. We Filipinos are mild drinkers." "Well, don't you drink at all?" "Yes, Joe, I drink, but not whiskey." "What do you drink?" "I drink lambanog." "Jungle juice, eh?" "I guess that is what the GIs call it." "You know where I could buy some?" "I have some you can have, but I don't think you will like it." "I'll like it alright, don't worry about that. I have drunk everything. Whiskey, rum, brandy, tequila, gin, champagne, sake, vodka." He mentioned many more things that I cannot spell. "I not only drink a lot, but I drink anything. I drank Chanel No. 5 when I was in France. In New Guinea, I got soused on Williams shaving lotion. When I was laid up in a hospital, I pie-eyed with medical alcohol. On my way here on a transport, I got stoned on torpedo juice. You ain't kidding when you say I drink a lot. So let's have some of that jungle juice, eh? Alright. I will just take this carabao to the mud hole, then we can go home and drink. You sure love that animal, don't you? I should. It does half of my work. Why don't you get two of them? I didn't answer. I unhitched Datu from the plow and led him to the mud hole. Joe was following me. Datu laid in the mud and was going whoosh whoosh. Flies and other insects flew from his back and hovered in the air. A strange, warm odor rose out of the muddle. A carabao does not have any sweat glands except on the nose. It has to wallow in the mud or bath in a river every 3 hours, otherwise it runs amok. Datu shook his head and his widespread horns scooped the muddy water on his back. He rolled over and was soon covered with slimy mud. An expression of perfect contentment came into his eyes. Then he swished his tail, and Joe and I had to move back from the mud hole to keep from getting splashed. I left Datu in the mud hole, then turning to Joe, I said, "Let us go." And we proceeded toward my house. Joe was cautiously looking around. This place is full of coconut trees. Don't you have any coconut trees in America? No, back home we have the pine tree. What is it like? Oh, it is tall and stately. It goes straight up to the sky like a skyscraper. It symbolizes America. Well, the coconut tree symbolizes the Philippines. It starts up to the sky, but then its leaves sway down the earth, as if remembering the land that gave it birth. It does not forget the soil that gave it life. In a short while, we arrived at my nipa house. I took the bamboo ladder and leaned it against a tree. Then I climbed the ladder and picked some calamansi. What's that? Philippine lemon. We will need this for our drinks. Oh, chasers. That is right, Joe. That is what the soldiers call it. I filled my pockets and then went down. I went to the garden well and washed the mud from my legs. Then we went up a bamboo ladder to my hut. It was getting dark, so I filled a coconut shell, dipped a wick in the oil, and lighted the wick. It produced a flickering light. I unstrapped my bolo and hung it on the wall. Please sit down, Joe. Where? He said, looking around. Right there, I said, pointing to the floor. Joe sat down on the floor. I sliced the calamansi in halves, took some rough salt and laid it on the foot-high table. I went to the kitchen and took the bamboo tube where I kept my lambanog. Lambanog is a drink extracted from the coconut tree with pulverized mango bark thrown in to prevent spontaneous combustion. It has many uses. We use it as a remedy for snake bites, as a counteractive for malaria chills, as an insecticide, and for tanning carabao hide. I poured some lambanog on 2 polished coconut shells and gave one of the shells to Joe. I diluted my drink with some of Joe's whiskey. It became milky. We were both seated on the floor. I poured some of my drink on the bamboo floor. It went through the slits to the ground below. Hey, what are you doing? Throwing good liquor away? No, Joe. It is the custom here always to give back to the earth a little of what we have taken from the earth. Well, he said, raising his shell, here's to the end of the war. Here is to the end of the war, I said, also lifting my shell. I gulped my drink down. I followed it with a slice of calamansi dipped in rough salt. Joe took his drink but reacted peculiarly. His eyes popped out like a frog's and his hand clutched his throat. He looked as if he had swallowed a centipede. Quick, a chaser! I gave him a slice of calamansi dipped in unrefined salt. He squirted it in his mouth. But it was too late. Nothing could chase him. The calamansi did not help him. I don't think even a coconut would have helped him. What is wrong, Joe? Nothing. The first drink always affects me this way. He was panting hard and tears were rolling down his cheeks. Well, the first drink always acts like a minesweeper, but this second one will be smooth. I filled his shell for the second time. Again, I diluted my drink with Joe's whiskey. I gave him his shell. I noticed that he was beaded with perspiration. He had unbuttoned his collar and loosened his tie. Joe took his shell, but he did not seem very anxious. I lifted my shell and said, "Here is to America!" I was trying to be a good host. "Here's to America!" Joe said. We both killed our drinks. Joe again reacted in a funny way. His neck stretched out like a turtle's, and now he was panting like a carabao gone berserk. He was panting like a carabao gone amok. He was grasping his tie with one hand. Then he looked down on his tie, threw it to one side and said, "Oh Christ, for a while I thought it was my tongue." After this, he started to tinker with his teeth. "What is wrong, Joe?" I asked, still trying to be a perfect host. "Plenty. This dang drink has loosened my bridge work." As Joe exhaled, a moth flying around the flickering flame fell dead. He stared at the dead moth and said, "And they talked of DDT." Well, how about another drink? It is what we came here for. "No thanks, I'm through." "Okay, just one more." I poured the juice into the shells and again diluted mine with whiskey. I handed Joe his drink. "Here's to the Philippines!" "Here's to the Philippines!" Joe took some of his drink. I could not see very clearly in the flickering light, but I could have sworn I saw smoke coming out of his ears. "This stuff must be radioactive." He threw the remains of his drink on the nipa wall and yelled, "Blaze! God dang you, Blaze!" Just as I was getting in the mood to drink, Joe passed out. He lay on the floor flat as a starfish. He was in a class all by himself. I knew that the soldiers had to be back in their barracks at a certain time, so I decided to take Joe back. I tried to lift him. It was like lifting a carabao. I had to call 4 of my neighbors to help me carry Joe. We slung him on top of my carabao. I took my bolo from the house and strapped it on my waist. Then I proceeded to take him back. The whole barrio was wondering what had happened to the big Americano. After 2 hours, I arrived at the airfield. I found out which barracks he belonged to and took him there. His friends helped me to take him to his cot. They were glad to see him back. Everybody thanked me for taking him home. As I was leaving the barracks to go home, one of his buddies called me and said, "Hey you, how about a can of beer before you go?" "No thanks, we Filipinos are mild drinkers."
The protagonist perceives the American soldier as someone who is aggressive and more competitive in drinking alcohol. In the story, they are depicted as heavy drinkers who consumes large amount of alcohol in a short period of time, unlike Filipinos who are mild drinkers as mentioned in the story. Here we can recognize the difference in cultural attitudes towards alcohol consumption of the Filipino and American soldier. The story highlights the significant cultural difference between the American soldier and the Filipino protagonist. For Filipinos, drinking is a social activity that emphasizes camaraderie, conversation, and enjoyment over the mere act of getting drunk. In contrast, the American soldier's approach is more on drinking excessively and the capacity of one person to handle large amounts of alcohol. This difference emphasizes Filipinos' preference for moderate drinking. The Carabao named Datu plays a significant role in the story as it represents Filipino identity, resilience, and the agrarian roots of Filipino culture. The Carabao symbolizes the strength and endurance of the Filipino people. The story demonstrates the strength and resilience of Filipino culture in overcoming the challenges of colonialism. Despite the influence of the American culture, the protagonist remains true to his identity, showcasing Filipino drinking customs and values. You know what, class? There are so many ways to celebrate our unique identity as Filipinos. In this particular lesson, you are going to create a slogan that represents your understanding of the unique identity of Filipinos. Do consider incorporating words, phrases, or themes that convey your love for your country, for your culture, and fellow Filipinos. And remember, be creative and expressive in your interpretation. You will be graded based on these criteria: understanding of Filipino identity, incorporation of meaningful elements, creativity, and expression. For your assessment, just choose the letter of the correct answer. What does the protagonist's preference for lambanog over whiskey signify? A. Resistance to cultural assimilation, desire for exotic beverages, fear of trying new things, lack of access to whiskey. The correct answer is letter A, resistance to cultural assimilation. Number 2, how do the protagonist's interaction with the American soldier reflect cultural differences? A, the protagonist refuses to speak to the soldier. B, soldier shows disrespect towards the protagonist. C, the protagonist demonstrates hospitality towards the soldier. Or D, the soldier refuses to acknowledge the protagonist's presence. The correct answer is letter C. The protagonist demonstrates hospitality towards the soldier. Question number 3. What does the coconut tree symbolize in the story? A. Strength and resilience. B. Freedom and independence. C. Adaptation and assimilation. D. Colonial influence. The correct answer is letter A. Strength and resilience. Question number 4. How does the American soldier's behavior challenge cultural stereotypes? A. By refusing to drink alcohol. B. By showing respect for Filipino customs. C. By demonstrating a lack of understanding of Filipino culture. Or D. By embracing Filipino traditions. The correct answer is letter C, by demonstrating a lack of understanding of Filipino culture. Number 5. How does the story demonstrate resilience in the face of cultural change? A. By highlighting the protagonist's adaptation to American culture. Ay, A. By highlighting the protagonist's adaptation to American customs. B. By showcasing the protagonist's refusal to engage in cultural exchange. C. By depicting the protagonist's pride in Filipino traditions. Or D. By emphasizing the protagonist's desire to assimilate into American culture. The answer is letter C, by depicting the protagonist's pride in Filipino traditions. Now for your assignment, here are the questions that you need to answer on your reflective notebook. How did the story "We Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers" make you feel about Filipino culture and identity? What lessons about cultural diversity and identity can be learned from the experiences of the characters in the story? Think about a situation when you face cultural differences similar to those shown in the story. How did you handle those differences? As Filipinos, we should be proud of our heritage. Despite the challenges that we face and the influence of other culture, we must remember to love and take pride in our country. We should not forget the sacrifices made by our heroes just to give us our freedom. We must cherish the traditions, cultures, and values of Filipinos that make us unique as an individual and as a nation. Remember, dear learners, piliin palagi ang inang Pilipinas. I hope you enjoyed our lesson for today. I'll see you again next time. This has been Teacher Diane. Happy learning!